Union auto workers started gathering around midnight at this Detroit General Motors plant and others like it across the country.
We want to be paid fairly. We make quality cars and we want quality pay.
The strike comes after GM's 2015 labor deal with the union expired Saturday over fault lines ranging from wages to health care coverage.
48,000 auto workers are now on strike, shutting down 33 manufacturing plants in 9 states across the United States and 22 parts distribution warehouses. As you may recall, GM went bankrupt in 2009 and the workers agreed to substantial cuts to pay to help the company get back on its feet. And now that GM seems to be doing a lot better, it's time to see some of those profits return to the workers who created them.
Almost a decade after its 2009 bankruptcy, General Motors made $8.1 billion last year, and its CEO earned nearly $22 million. According to the company's previous union contract, GM's hourly auto workers make anywhere from roughly $44,000 to $99,000 a year.
Now you might be thinking, but Hasan, that seems pretty good. $44,000 to $100,000 a year? I'd kill for that job. Well, the reason why they have this kind of pay to begin with is because of the unions. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, non-union workers only make 82% of what union member makes. But what are unions exactly?
Labor unions began as a way for the common worker to achieve collective bargaining power against employers for higher wages, safer conditions, and better hours.
To make things simpler, let's divide society into 2 groups, the bosses and the workers. You, the worker, want to work as few hours as possible and get paid as much as you can. Your boss, on the other hand, wants you to work as many hours as possible and pay you as little as they can get away with. Now, your boss owns the business, so they end up having a lot more power than you do, or in most instances, they have all the power over you and your life. They control what your job is going to be, they control whether you will even have a job, how much you'll get paid, and what kind of benefits you'll receive. So in order to deal with this imbalance of power, workers form unions so they can collectively bargain for each worker. Because if we are united, we can bargain. But if we are divided, we end up begging. And the bosses know that there is no value added to capital without workers. Without workers, a factory cannot produce anything. It's just an empty space to store stuff in. And this is precisely how unions flex their muscle, by occasionally reminding bosses of the cost of the company of idle factories with no workers.
A union's collective power was often enforced in the form of a strike, a practice still common today among public school teachers and transportation workers. Workers would band together and agree not to work until employers gave in to their demands. In the early days, these strikes could turn into violent riots. Today, most unions settle conditions directly with the companies. Through striking and negotiating, unions were able to achieve many victories for its workers. Today, sectors like public education and auto industries are heavily unionized, but many other private sector jobs no longer have a large union influence.
And that's why our wages have remained largely stagnant, while the economy has grown and profits have grown, all on the backs of the American worker. Perhaps the best testament to the power of labor unions is how quickly companies will increase wages and benefits even at the threat of unionization. That's just one way that unions end up increasing all wages, even for non-union workers in the same industry. This is why unions are terrifying for the bosses, because it hurts their profits by forcing them to redistribute a larger percentage of what the workers are creating back to the workers as wages. This is why 75% of companies hire consultants when the workplace wants to unionize, creating a union avoidance industry that alone is worth several $100 million. Just think about that for a second. Companies would rather spend hundreds of millions of dollars on squashing unionization efforts and even more on paying off politicians to write legislation that harms unions and collective bargaining power, then give some of those profits back to you, those profits that you have created. Anti-union legislation is really harmful because it ends up restricting what unions can do, like the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947, which placed restrictions on tactics like striking and allowed for the creation of right-to-work laws that prohibit union security agreements that require all workers to pay union dues, which of course ended up weakening union power. This is part of the reason why only 6% of the private sector in the US is currently unionized, a rate that has fallen dramatically since the 50s and 60s, a rate similar to the roaring 1920s. But then again, our income and wealth inequality also resembles that time, so all of this makes a little bit more sense. I'm Hasan Piker, and this has been The Breakdown. Never miss another breakdown video by ringing the bell below. You'll get notified whenever we publish something new. Also, don't forget to join TYT today. Download our TYT Plus app on your phone, or head on over to tyt.com/join.
Perfect.